Hello everybody, thank you for spending a little bit of your day checking out This Week in Cleantech. If it's your first time, there are 89 other versions of this for you to check out. A long library, it's like starting Game of Thrones in Season 5. I don't know what you're doing, you got some catching up to do, but I'm Paul Gerke, Content Director of Factor This. That's Mike Casey, my foil, President over at Tigercomm. We do this show every Friday. It's a 15-minute roundup of the biggest stories in the climate and clean energy space. Today is Friday, August 29th, 2025. Can't believe September is almost upon us. We got a returning guest listening in, Dharna Noor from The Guardian, will be joining us shortly. It's great to see you, Mike. I appreciate you jumping through flaming hoops to do this show while I was on vacation last week. I got to apologize to producer Brian Mendez. I heard he was up late at night trying to get the edit right. For that, I am solely responsible. Next time I'm on vacation, you're on your own.
That's not encouraging, but let me say something. I'll do you think anybody in the history of This Week in Cleantech, all 90 episodes, has ever binge listened or binge watched? I can't imagine they have. Like, you would have to be an uber Cleantech geek nerd to want to do that.
My mom maybe, but I don't think she's ever listened to the show actually.
I can't even get my wife to volunteer to watch it.
I can't get my wife to listen either. I don't know. Maybe that tells us something, Mike. We're not doing enough to convert the wife audience, so much so that our own wives don't listen.
All right. Well, I want to give a listener shout out to someone who does listen, though not binge listen. Ethan Loomis, videographer at Clean Energy Video. He said, "This remains one of my favorite podcasts in all the industry to listen to." Ethan, thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to say, listeners, if you're going to RE Plus next month in Las Vegas, we're going to be taping that week's episode live from the Power Up stage at 1:30 p.m.
We had to beg, borrow, and steal to get that spot.
I had to send 20 Venmo payments to Nico Johnson out of your bank account. But hey, you know what? We need to hear from some of you folks, because we really are challenged in trying to figure out how much coverage of the federal policy poop show to cover every episode, or how much to minimize it. And I got to tell you, I don't think we've decided yet. So come to the Power Up stage, talk to us, let us know what you think. Paul?
I appreciate you saying the poop show, because if there's a kid binge listening right now, I didn't want them to stop at episode 90 when you hit the hard S. Anyway, if you've got something to say to us, check us out at RE Plus or hit us up via email. Mine, which I volunteer every week on the show, paul.kirky@clarionevents.com. I had like 1,000 emails to come back to, Mike. I literally just got to the end of it. If I missed yours, I'm really sorry. Kick my tires again. Anyway, stories this week. We've always got way more than 5 to get to. A lot of them have to do with that poop show. Let's start somewhere far, far away, Mike. Story number 1.
Yeah, man. Paul Burkhart from Bloomberg. African imports of Chinese solar panels surge in energy shakeup, Paul Gerke.
According to a report from think tank Ember, African imports of Chinese solar panels jumped 60% in the last 12 months through June, 15 gigawatts compared to 9.4 gigawatts previously. 20 countries reported record amounts of imports of Chinese panels during that period, including Algeria, a couple others. Pakistan had a similar surge last year, mass importing solar panels from China. Mike, they're the cheapest to get on the market, and the United States seems to be going out of its way to make them more expensive for American consumers as we pursue domestic options. But it doesn't look like Africa is going to be building solar panels anytime soon. Seems like a huge win for developing countries who are looking to harness the ever-present photons raining down upon us. Mike, what were your thoughts on this piece?
So the continent has tremendous solar resources, even compared with other parts of the world that can boast the same. We're going to put a map up for our YouTube viewers.
A map.
Analysts say this could be the beginning of the continent's path away from fossil fuels. It's a huge win for many who just don't have access to very much energy to begin with. And solar's popularity is surging because Chinese panels have become so cheap that most countries see them as the most economical energy source. But Paul, you know whose panel makers aren't profiting from that trend?
The people the ones here.
Yes, sir. That's correct, because simian policies are no way to run a superpower, but they are a way to downshift a superpower to a runner-up, Paul Gerke.
Very punchy way to put it. Story number 2 by Nico Rivera of The Washington Post. It's titled, Home Batteries Are Saving America from Blackouts. Yes, they are. Mike, tell me about it.
And Nico is He's a This Week in Cleantech alum guest, by the way.
Shout out to Nico. Yeah.
Yep. Blackouts, they're common in Puerto Rico. According to the forecast from the island's grid operator, Luma, the power will go out 93 times in Puerto Rico before the summer ends. But 1 in 10 houses on the islands have now solar and storage as backup power. Utilities can also pay homeowners to join what they call virtual power plants that supply power when demand spikes. This year alone, Luma has activated home backup batteries 30 times. They're booming on the mainland too. During a blackout, Americans with home batteries can keep critical appliances running, food from rotting. In some cases, utilities can also draw from home battery networks to stabilize the grid. California's home battery network can deliver 535 megawatts in an emergency. That's about half the output of a nuclear plant. I would also encourage people to check out the new post up from SIA's Abby Hopper about what our sectors are doing to boost the power supply in Texas, Paul.
I'm glad you said something about Texas, because when you start talking about home batteries and battery resilience and virtual power plants, what's happening in ERCOT right now, I was just on another podcast, Clean Power Hour, with Tim Montague talking about this earlier today. I don't know when that episode, if ever, will see the light of day, but we had a conversation about how Texas went from Winter Storm Uri to having a sub 1% chance of an outage this summer, despite it being incredibly hot and all of the load growth, not only from data centers, but also from air conditioning being put on our power grids. It's a testament to just how powerful batteries are, 1, 2, how much they make our grid more resilient, and 3, just how quickly we can scale and get batteries online and make a huge difference. You may recall some debate over the tax credit eligibility of battery systems. That runway was kept in place through the full runway as initially promised by the IRA. And that's a good thing, because with electricity costs rising pretty much everywhere right now, some research indicates that 60% of American homes are in the running to save money with solar panel and battery setups. Battery installations on track to break another record this year. Analysts do expect growth to slow once credits for home batteries expire, thanks to the language of the OBBB. Stanford scientists, though, say that once those tax credits are gone, subsidy-free as an industry, U.S. homes would still save money installing solar and storage, dropping from 60% to just under a third, but still a smart economical decision for a lot of people. Costs continue to come down, Mike, and vehicle-to-grid technology is another thing that promises so much. Once you have that in your driveway, you really don't need much else, but excited to see where this space goes. Get us to story number 3.
Christopher Mims, The Wall Street Journal. I drove an EV deep into the wilderness. I never feared running out of juice, Paul.
Do we have time for a story? Can I share a story?
You can.
Okay,
you can. And I want you to know that I noted you want our listeners to know how important you are because you said you had 1,000 emails upon returning from vacation.
Yeah.
That's only the boast of someone who needs people to know he's got that much status.
It's the boast of someone who has no email filters set up in his Outlook and gets all of them, from the spammiest spam request for viewers on your site to legitimate RE plus requests, of which we're getting a lot right now since the event's just around the corner. But anyway, so quick story on this. Not that long ago, a couple of years ago, maybe let's say 2 or 3 summers ago, I had to rent a car and drive to Michigan last minute. And I ended up stuck with an EV. Big EV guy, big clean energy guy, first time taking a cross-country road trip in it. Mike Casey, it was a disaster. It took me 20 hours to get to Michigan. There were not good charging spots in rural Pennsylvania. Believe it or not, to get from New Jersey to Michigan, there's a pretty big black hole where there's not a whole lot of EV charging. Ended up at Bald Eagle State Park, sort of stranded for a while on a slow charger. Ended up literally rolling into a fast charger near Penn State University, which saved my trip. The point of all this is even in the last 3 years, driving an EV across the country is fundamentally different than it was even just then. A lot easier now, not just because of the infrastructure that's been rolled out, but because of battery capacity and how much that's grown. EV tax credits do expire September 30th, but EVs right now still an attractive buy. There are nearly 12,000 fast charging stations in the U.S. right now, about 60,000 total ports. By 2030, just 5 years from now, Mike, the U.S. expected to triple that amount. That is despite the Fed slashing away at all of the federal charging incentives. Mike, your thoughts?
So the reporter took his Rivian EV, which I'm already jealous of.
The Rivian's sick. If you've never been in it, it's pretty cool, dude.
my neighbor's got one, and I told him I might have to steal it at some point.
I have can't afford-itis with the Rivian for sure.
On a 1,600-mile road trip, he stopped at 10 charging stations, and he went from 43 to 80% power in about 28 minutes. Locations with good food and clean bathrooms, charging prices comparable to fueling up a traditional SUV, regenerative braking, also could charge your battery while you're driving. You might need to do some planning, but other than that, EV road trips, they're now a real thing you can do on a whim. This contrasts with the EV haters' wild claims to keep range anxiety, discouraging Americans from buying EVs. But once again, our progress has to be compared with that in other parts of the world. And as we discussed last week, China is installing a fleet of 5-minute chargers, Paul Gerke.
Yeah, and we'll get there eventually, and that'll help with that range anxiety. And I got to say, the key word that I missed in all of that was planning. I didn't plan the trip. I treated it like a gas trip because I wasn't expecting to have an EV. If I had thought it out in advance, it probably wouldn't have been so hellish. But we're getting there, Mike. It's progress, not as fast as China, but hopefully still progress.
Yep.
Story number 4 by Chuck McCutcheon of Axios, titled Trump Administration Halts Work on New England Offshore Wind Project. To me, Mike, this is one of the big ones this week. What's going on with the Trump administration sticking his hand into another wind project that's nearly completed and trying to retch it from the grid?
Imagine this scenario. You were permitted 2 years ago to build a massive offshore wind farm that's going to provide power for 350,000 homes across New England. You've built 80% of it in a time of rising power prices, and then some geniuses in the federal government decide, wait, you might cause a national security concern.
No.
Never mind the fact that the Northern Europe has built a huge amount of offshore wind with zero national security concerns. That's what our friends at Ecuador have just experienced. So let's be clear. This is the latest step in the mafiaization of the American economy. Paul?
The short answer from the Trump administration is the president doesn't like wind. Is that answer supposed to be good enough for us? Is that supposed to be good enough for the folks that are going to see their bills go up in New England because we've got 4 gigawatts of stranded transmission for offshore wind that's not going to come anytime soon? We don't like wind, so that's fine. So we're going to unplug an 80% finished power project that was supposed to start powering tens of thousands of homes next spring, like right now, just because we don't like wind? Like, come on, man. Like, there really is no explanation for this that even borderline sensical. It is everything we say it is every week on the show, and then some. You may recall earlier, we wrote about this too on Factor This, when Interior Secretary Doug Burgum stepped in and tried to shut down Empire Wind off the coast of New York back in April, that $5 billion project, told them amidst progress, hey, you got to stop work on it. They took it to, I don't know if it went all the way to court, but they got the lawyers involved and figured out that it was okay for them to start work back up. I sure hope that is the case with Revolution Wind, but the fact that we're slowing power from reaching the grid at all makes no sense to me, Mike.
Well, we'll wrap up this discussion about Don Burgum and go to our fifth story by Dharna Noor from The Guardian, entitled Trump Tariffs and Green Energy Rollbacks Push Household Electricity Bills Up 10%. Dharna Noor, it has been 14 months since we last had you on, so it's good to see you again, my friend.
Thanks for having me back.
We want people to read your story, but for those who haven't read the piece yet, and they should, what is the big takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway is basically that, as you're saying, the Trump administration is making it harder to bring energy online. And, one effect of that is that they are basically doing the opposite of what they claimed that they would do when it comes to utility bills. So on the campaign trail and in office, Trump has repeatedly said, we're going to bring down energy bills for ordinary American people. But actually, household electricity bills have increased by 10% since Donald Trump retook the White House in January. And that's according to an analysis that I covered in this news story by the group Climate Power. And it's based on data from the Federal Energy Information Agency. I think that's the biggest takeaway, and we can get into the specific causes for that increase. But I guess the other thing that I would note is that this is a problem that's projected to get way, way worse, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point, and especially in places that are already constrained by data center development. I live out in New Jersey, as some of the listeners know. I'm on the front lines, so to speak, not to steal that metaphor, but of those increases in electricity costs. I believe my bill has gone up more than 20% in just the last year, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. Trump just recently in the media blamed the New Jersey prices, incidentally, on wind, despite the fact that we have a trivial amount of wind power in our generation mix. I guess, right, if you looked at the stats, it punches a hole in it immediately, but logic has never really been the strong suit. Is it safe to say, though, that like there's nothing that is a light at the end of the tunnel in this power price? I don't, unless data centers are ultimately not nearly what we think they're going to be, and somehow we can finagle the growth of our transmission system to fit the consumers in their place. I don't see a way in which we win here. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this war on wind is not pushing the U.S. in the right direction.
Yeah.
But there's hope for like the grid operator to do something about this. So I think we all live in the PJM grid, which is in the American Northeast, the largest U.S. grid. And, you know, there are some things that the folks who operate PJM could do to get energy online more quickly. There's great reporting, for instance, in the Gothamist about the fact that I think there's like 36 major shovel-ready solar projects that are awaiting approval by PJM. They could, some experts say, fast track those projects. The problem is that there's like a pretty serious time crunch here because Trump's war on renewable energy is also extending to solar. And that means that, you know, unless these projects start construction by the end of next year, by the end of 2026, they're not going to qualify for these major incentives that could make it really financially viable for them to expand solar energy. And that's going to be pretty hard to do. So, you know, like there's hope for some of this to happen, but historically PJM has not been amazing at bringing renewables online quickly. We're also talking, I should say, like right after the DOE just said that they're going to keep yet another oil and gas plant online. So like in theory, maybe that will bring down energy prices. However, it will not do that by nearly the degree that we would see them fall if we, for instance, slowed the growth of these data centers, or if we brought wind and solar online, which are far cheaper and more, you know, environmentally sustainable to run than something like an oil and gas plant.
Paul, hear me now.
Yep.
Dharna Noor her LinkedIn page is going to be swarmed by fossil fuel bro bots. And the head of the federal agency that produces stats that she covered is going to be fired very quickly. But setting that both aside, bold predictions, data centers and AI are called out as a factor. Ms. Noor, do you get a sense from your reporting how big a piece of the puzzle this is compared to tariffs and the dismantling clean energy policy support?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge piece of the puzzle, and it's also, I think, deeply related, as we're sort of getting at here, to these other factors. So again, PJM, the biggest grid in the US, the one that we all, I think, live in, there where, energy prices are rising rapidly, the grid operator, it says that data centers alone account for like 70% of the projected increase in energy demand. So huge reason for this. But the other factors are also important and could be increasingly important. So obviously, you know, if you're trying to get energy prices down, you could either stop bringing so many data centers online, which I don't think is going to happen, or you can bring more energy online. Again, the fastest and cheapest energy that you can bring online is renewable energy, wind and solar. That's not what the Trump administration is doing. So, you know, in that sense, you know, these things are deeply related. Tariffs are also related here because, you know, tariffs raise the cost of the raw materials like steel and aluminum, and also equipment that supports power grids. And a lot of that stuff is sourced from overseas. So if it's more expensive to bring all this stuff online, and it's a lot more expensive to bring on the cheapest and fastest forms of energy, then, you know, we could see this problem go haywire in the coming years. In fact, there was an analysis that I covered from Energy Innovation, a sort of climate think tank, and they found that this is going to get a lot worse. In fact, they found that the One Big Beautiful Bill, the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, could actually increase wholesale prices in energy by like 74%, primarily to the repeal of lots of like green energy incentives that we saw come online under President Biden.
No, see, it's all wrong. It's renewables' fault, Dharna. Get it right. But Paul Gerke, we're just about out of time. We need to go to our Cleantecher of the week.
We will. We're going to get to Cleantecher of the week. I'm just going to predict it now, and this is not an original thought, but people are going to start burning data centers down in a few years. I'm just saying, if their electricity bills are triple what they were, and everyone knows it's data centers to blame, Heads up for your data center, folks. Just saying, not a threat. Anyway, Cleantecher of the week. You've given me another fantastic name to pronounce, and I really appreciate that you guys do this to me every single week, and I apologize profusely if and when I get it wrong. Jingjing Zhang, a Chinese lawyer who pioneered environmental lawsuits at home, now she's helping communities in the global south hold Chinese state-owned companies like mining firms behind toxic spills in Zambia legally accountable for their pollution and human rights abuses tied to China's Belt and Road projects. Congratulations, Ms. Zhang, our Cleantecher of the week this week.
Yeah, so if you ever think your life is hard, try suing the Chinese government as a Chinese citizen for a living. Try that,
tough,
man. Yeah. All right, we want to thank our wonderful producer, Brian Mendez, who... listeners, he is back to sporting the Euro look. I am thinking
we're so serious on this show. It's like dire instances, and then you're like, let's talk about your Euro goatee for a second.
Well, I think we have to have competing photos of Mendez, like clean shaven and the Euro look, and just see if we get like a rush of direction. But that would presuppose that Brian Mendez was care what he's in. But we do care that Dharna Noor took time and joined us. Thank you, and we want to thank Claire Quirin and Alex Peterson for helping gather these awesome stories.
You're asking the guy who edits the show to put pictures of his own goatee in. That's what you're asking for, ultimately.
You have no idea the size of Brian Mendez's ego. He wanted the $50 million jet. The guy is
speaking
out of control.
Egos, we got to go before we set a new record for time on this show. Thanks for listening to us blather. Thanks again to Dharna for your time. Really appreciate it. Shout us out. Like this if you like it on Spotify, Apple, wherever podcasts are sold. We'll catch you next week, everybody.